I would start with the definition of this, and this is basically a good definition. You can actually Google the definition of autism and challenge this definition. So this is what is being said by those people who are actually diagnosing your children of autism. That autism spectrum disorder. Now, from the beginning, you will get it just wrong. They got it just wrong. They actually classified it as a spectrum. You know, a spectrum is a broad band, right? So if a spectrum is a broad band, why would we define it as one condition? Why would we even give it a definition? Why don't we focus on just managing what caused the condition, the spectrum, instead of just focusing on calling it autism, and then we start fixing autism, and yet we've not even defined it. So listen to this, that autism spectrum disorder is a developmental disorder that affects communication, that is one. Two is behavior and social interaction. Underline as we go ahead. It affects communication. So these children or these people are unable to communicate clearly, which is shaky. Number two, their behavior and their social interaction. So that is the definition of autism. But I want to ask you this for free. You've realized that nowadays there are so many schools that are opening, and these schools are for special children. They call them special schools, right? Where were these schools about 20, 30 years ago? Why are we having all these schools and these special care centers coming up so fast that are actually going to take care of children who have special condition or special needs? Do you now get to see my point? I talked to you about how people manage these conditions, that these addictions, like drug addiction. And we were clear that putting your children in a center, putting these people who are addicted to drugs, alcohol, bang, and all this cocaine stuff, putting them in one center to just help them achieve their goals of reversing their addictions is somehow crazy. We all know that if you have a child or a baby and you want this child to speak faster or to adapt to things quickly, what do? Do you keep this child inside the house, or do you let this child play outside with other children who are older than this child? That's a question to you. If you have a child and you're interested in this child speaking faster, adapting new language faster, and being healthy, do you keep this child hooked on a television or on a phone or on a laptop in the house, or do you let this baby or this child play outside with other children so that he can learn from other children who are older than him and challenge him? And the reality is, you would rather let this child play outside so that they can get experience from other children, right? That's how your son or your daughter starts to speak further or faster. But look at it this way. When somebody is struggling with drug addiction, alcohol addiction, and even sex addiction, these people are placed in a rehab center. And a rehab center is actually encompassing people who have the same qualities. So all the drunkards in one center, all the the people who are addicted to bang in that center too. So therefore, it simply means your chances of survival are very minimal, because how will you get out of this when you still feel comfortable around people who drink like you, people who smoke like you, people who are addicted to things like you? So why are we having all these rehab centers? Look at Mombasa. Mombasa is actually a place that has a lot of rehab centers in one area. But the cases of of drug addiction and all these issues in Mombasa are still going up. Why? It's because how can you put me in you want me to walk out of my alcohol addiction, but you put me in a center of other addicts, and then you're busy pumping methadone in me, you're busy pumping alcohol, you're busy giving me the same drugs to help me win off my addiction. But I'm in the same environment with people who are drinking like me, who are addicts like me. And I told you, it's like being clever in a school of fools. You come up number one on a list of people who are fools, and then we have to celebrate you, we clap for you. Hey, you are the best fool. You get my point? So this is the same thing that happens. Nowadays, special schools are all over, and you're taking your children to these special schools, hoping that these special schools have something unique that will change your child's or your son, daughters, and they will change their lives. One of these cases is this autism. So you take these children to those schools, and there they have other children who have the same conditions. So number one, these children are isolated. They start feeling like, oh, okay, this is where stigma starts actually. So naming them special children, that becomes a serious problem. You can imagine now, a child is in a special school with autism, and now when he comes back home, you want to help him win off the stigma about autism. So from the definition, they got it wrong. Development disorder that affects communication, behavior, and social interaction. But that wasn't a problem. I want you to know, for us to diagnose mental health conditions, there is a manual. And that manual is what we call the DSM. DSM is a manual that was actually still used, only that they review and they update. It's a manual that is being used to update issues with mental health diseases, diagnose and then give the treatment guidelines. It's called a DSM. And from 2013 backwards, we had a DSM-4. And this is where it got interesting. I was telling a friend of mine this story, and this is where it got interesting. So in DSM-4, that was 2013 and back, it actually classified autism in different categories. And these were the names, some of the names that were put on this condition called autism. So they actually named it so that different conditions. So because it's a spectrum, and there's a lady who actually came up with this diagnosis of this spectrum thing, and she actually won some prizes for just naming a disease that she cannot even define on her own. So listen to this. DSM-4. What were the classifications? Number one, they named it autistic disorder. So it started with autistic disorder, and then they went to Asperger's disorder. Now remember this guy called Asperger's. He's called Hans Asperger. This is a guy who, back then, him and the other guy called Leo, I think Leo Kiana or something. Those are the two guys who actually came up with this autistic diagnosis and the research on autism. So another name, and it got so confusing here because they named it childhood disintegrative disorder. So imagine you sit back and a psychiatrist is running through a DSM manual, and he tells you your son writes a diagnosis that your child is now suffering from childhood disintegrative disorder. You as a parent, tell me, how does that come to you? How does that hit you? Like, my child is having disintegrative childhood disorder. You're like, oh, Daktari, what next do you do? This must be a very serious condition, right? But as we go ahead, you'll realize that most of these conditions are dietary conditions. And there is a substance that fries the brain, that destroys the brains in these children. But taking care of a child or a baby starts before a woman gets pregnant. This is the reason why I insist women should eat healthy before you even get pregnant. For you to avoid these conditions in pregnancy, for you to avoid problems in pregnancy, for you to give birth to healthy babies and produce enough breast milk for 6 months, you must start feeding well before you even get that pregnancy. You prepare yourself for the pregnancy, and then you eat healthy during the pregnancy, and then after the pregnancy you continue the life so that you don't start blaming it on baby fat. Baby fat, it's not baby fat, it's you eating yourself to where you are. So that was number 3. So we have autistic disorder, and then Asperger's disorder, and then childhood disintegrative disorder. And the next one, PDD-NOS. Now these are abbreviations, PDD-NOS. Now, of course, even a medical doctor, when you see PDD-NOS, you're like, okay, what is this? And then listen to how it is actually pronounced. This is what these abbreviations mean. Pervasive development disorder. Hey, pervasive development disorder. So that is PDD. Then hyphen, not otherwise specified. So basically what these people are saying is, we are just throwing out this word, but we don't know what that disease is. Now go on the internet and try to find out information about autism and the causes. Guess what they say the causes are, or the etiology? It has no known cause. It has no known cause, and it's familial, so it is in the genetics. And I told you, if you have been here for long, you know, when you hear a doctor telling you it has no known cause, or idiopathy, or It is in genetics. Just know your doctor does not know what he's treating. He does not know what he's saying. So autism is one of the conditions that was just thrown out there, and people are tamed it. They took it and adapted it. Same to most of the health conditions. You've heard of ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. So your child is suffering from lack of attention. Hey, where did this come from? Why did we have children not suffering from these conditions 20, 30 years ago? And like now it's becoming a serious thing, and we are diagnosing it in children and then giving them medication for ADHD. Children are given drugs for ADHD, right? Just because a child is jumpy all over, because they are eating foods that are highly inflammatory to the brain, the sugar is there, of course, and now we have to give them a drug that will stop them from hyperactivity. Now we have another one that is called OCD. Obsessive compulsive disorder. These are names that even if you take time to try and understand them, they're just crazy. And that's why I say sometimes most of our diseases are just basically dietary, but they don't want to do that, because if they take you to the dietary direction, they're actually going to fight the food industry. And remember, the food industry is actually funding some of these things. The pharmaceutical industries determine who will win a Nobel Prize for a disease or a condition, a new research and a new condition. And these things are happening in those countries. Of course, children in America eat a lot of bad foods. Children in UK eat a lot of crazy stuff. Look at the footballers. They get heart attacks before they even get to retirement age. At 36, somebody has a heart problem. Look at people there. America is about 40% obese and overweight people, but they're the same people who are suffering from this condition. And look at what is happening to them. They want to dictate the world to follow them so that we can, misery loves company. Now they are pushing the LGXYZ agenda to your throats, to your governments, and we are adapting it. These are the same conditions that these people suffer from, but they bring it to us. Now they don't understand even our genetics. Let's say genetics plays a role. They don't understand our genetics. That is one. Number two, they don't even understand our foods. So they are dictating our diets according to their foods. Who is fooling who? So somebody from the West has to sit down, determine that the sun is going to cause you skin cancer. Of course, their skin is crazy. Their skin doesn't have melanin, so they are going to suffer from skin cancer if they expose themselves to the sun. And then that person determines that the sun will cause skin cancer in their skin, but pushes it in your throat as an African, and you adapt it, and you're busy now applying sunscreen. Now you become deficient of vitamin D, and same people will bring you vitamin D supplements. You see that? You think they're stupid? So the research is for them. They know nothing about our foods. I was reading a book that was actually talking about the foods that disappeared in Africa, African foods that actually disappeared, including our wheat. Now we've adapted their things and we use them, and we are thinking that they are the special ones. These are people who think Africans are very, very lazy, and they are very poor, and they are mentally retarded. And they're the same people who are writing you DSM-4 and DSM-5. They reviewed DSM-4 in 2013 and came up with now calling it attention spectrum, ASD and ASC. So D for disorder and C for condition. So they realize when they say disorder, you people get offended because a disorder is actually a disease. It's something that has to be victimized. So for them to just sugarcoat it, they call it a condition. Now, the earlier we stop listening to those people, the better for us. We cannot allow them to bring the same confusion here through their pharmaceutical companies. But we cannot do this by relying on our legal authorities or governments, because our governments are totally compromised. Our regulatory bodies are compromised. Because how is it possible that some of these conditions, their treatment guidelines are coming from the West and they are sponsored by pharmaceutical companies? Look at depression. You don't have a job. Instead of finding a job, they tell you are depressed. And then they tell you, no, depression comes because you don't have a job. And you believe it and you become. And guess what? Antidepressants are coming. Now you think antidepressants are going to pull you out of depression. And what do? They cause you suicidal thoughts as a side effect. That is more depression. So where are we heading with that? Digging us early graves, right? They lie to our women that, you know what, hormonal contraceptives are going to help you control birth. Then women run to it because we never question anything that is coming from a European. A white person, when they say something, we are running there. They just put a headline. Red meat will cause you cancer. You're busy there avoiding red meat. Little do you know that these people are going to give you these solutions or these research and peer-reviewed papers to only create room and market for their products. They tell you cholesterol is bad for your consumption, and they classify cholesterol into bad and good cholesterol. But they don't tell you the liver makes cholesterol. So how can the liver make something that kills you? And then you avoid cholesterol-rich foods. You go in fat soluble vitamin deficiency, vitamin A deficiency, D, E, and K deficiencies, and they have a supplement for you. They have an immune booster for you. They tell you your child is running all over. So this child is suffering. He has a disease. This is a condition. The child is not supposed to be running this way. And now there's a drug for ADHD. Now they give you autism. They cannot even define it, but they win the Nobel Prizes for this nonsense. And of course, there is a drug for it. There's solutions for it. There's speech therapy. There is now social therapy. There is sleep therapy for these conditions. But the weird part is these children are not getting any better. They're getting worse. Every time we give birth, somebody has that condition. Somebody has a deformity. But we will never relate to the contraceptives that we used. We will never relate to the food industry, the food that are coming from the food industry that are actually fortified, zero nutritional value. No fiber, no vitamins, no nothing. But they are written on fortified with folic acid. They tell you to give your children folic acid so that it prevents the problems that will come with the brain and the spinal cord when you have a pregnancy, only to come later and tell you folic acid actually causes deformities in these children. And by that time they are saying these deformities are happening in children, how many women have taken iron sulfate and folic acid? They know very well your animals are grass-fed. So they know we have zebu cattle and zebu goats and all these, the grass-fed livestock. And they realize, oh, these guys are coming to be a problem in future. So what do they say? They bring you vaccines for this livestock. When they bring you vaccines, the same way they brought you GMO seeds, now our zebu cows are dying from different diseases that we don't even know. Nowadays, we don't have even our own maize seeds, the seedlings that we used to use to cultivate maize. We don't have them anymore. And of course, they are coming with the chest up with a solution. They have hybrid seeds. And all of us, because we are so hungry, because hunger is the enemy, we are running to take these genetic seeds, these genetically modified seeds, to plant them. We are forgetting we have a generation to protect. It's not about us. If you want to feed yourself with bad foods, you feed yourself with bad foods, but at least protect that person who is in your womb. Ladies, all this is coming in with MSG, monosodium glutamate, the synthetic one, not the natural one that is found in our meats. And this destroys and fries the brain of your child. From the womb, as you eat that food, you're destroying the central nervous system of the child. And then when you give birth to a child who is mentally retarded, they have a solution for you. They are so clueless in their countries, but they want to dictate things here. And then you take your child or your son from here or your parents from here, take them to India, take them to the United States because you can afford it. You have money, right? You take them there to go and have an organ transplant. So let's harvest organs here, take them to the United States, and then take our people there. How stupid are we? Our hospitals can do a very good job, only that most of our doctors are sleeping on the job. They're actually compromised. They are the ones who actually orchestrate sometimes. People die and postmortem is done and organs are missing. Your doctor is transporting organs to the West. So here, you're seated here taking your child to the West because they have high technology, right? To get that heart that was taken out of here. Hey, when will we ever learn? So instead of just feeding yourself and feeding your children with healthy foods from here, natural and organic foods from here, you would prefer to eat their foods brought in by KFC. Yes, it's not ours. We used to eat sweet potatoes. We still eat sweet potatoes, pumpkins, butternuts. But their foods mess up your taste buds, and you start thinking that our foods are not healthy. Their foods are the ones that are healthy because you see the advertisements on TV, right? So you don't feed your children here. You don't feed yourself here. You feed from the foods from their countries. Countries of people who have 40% of the population is obese and overweight. We trust their foods. We feed from their foods. Go to these food parlors on Tuesdays and see the lines. See the queue. And what are they loading in the system? They are loading MSG, monosodium glutamate. They are loading processed flavors. They are loading chemicals in their systems. And these are pregnant women standing on a line waiting for that chicken. She's pregnant. And then feeds on these things, hoping that the child will feed on something from the skies. No, the child will still feed from the same MSG. And now you kill the brain of the child. You destroy the spinal cord. Then when you give birth to a deformed child, you're wondering. You start to say, because Africans, we are so brainwashed by religion, you start to say, this is Satan. Hii ni uchawi. This is witchcraft. Witchcraft from where? Witchcraft from that food parlor that you keep on eating. There's nothing like witchcraft in these things. But you believe, you become. You believe, you become. So that's what they are doing. So autism is a non-issue. But because we are feeding ourselves with bad foods, we want to protect the food industry and allow people to dictate what diseases we suffer from. Ask yourself in your lineage, when was the last time, if you have an autistic child right now, look back 50 years. Was there any autism in your family? But why do you believe that now genetics has become a serious problem? Like, it's only now that genetics is becoming a serious problem? How about 50 years ago? When people used to eat on tubers, people used to eat meat, people used to fast, people used to exercise by chasing animals. Don't allow those people to mess you up. And they were so good at what they were doing. They actually put all this nonsense in the syllabus so that they condition doctors, so that the doctors condition you. And it's just an amazing field. They sell you the fear only to bring you a solution. They kill your people through medication. If you're very keen and you're very observant, you'll start to see how then do they create an organization in Kenya that regulates drugs and is called Pharmacy and Poisons Board. And now all of you, every weekend, you have your children in hospital. Every weekend, you have a children in hospital because you think you have the best insurance cover. Remember, the insurance idea came from them. And in those countries, insurance is actually destroying their people. Because you can walk in a hospital, you will get all the services, and you heard that lady saying here, they even call you to tell you, hey, please come do a checkup. Please, your drugs are ready. Please, insulin has come in. We have a new stock for drugs. We have a new drug. They keep on updating you. They now give you a glucometer to put on your hand to monitor it on your phone. So anytime you eat a carbohydrate, you feel panicked. Your blood sugars are going up, you're popping a pill. The same pill they gave you. So they gave you the glucometer to sell you the fear, and then now they are giving you medication to actually clear their fear, clear your fears.